You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 446. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast from Blind Melon, Mr. Rogers Stevens. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm living the dream, or should I address you by your full name, as we were discussing via text? Thomas Rogers Stevens.
Right. But if you could do that more than twice in a row, I would be impressed.
As I said, if you had like some sort of Sylvester's, it's like the cat lisp, that might be hard to say your name. So we'll just go with Rogers Stevens.
It's the two S's in the middle. Like it's hard to tell where one of them ends and the other one begins, you know?
Must be fun to write like an email address and everything.
No one gets it right. Yeah.
Well, mine's easy, Brando, just Brandon, chop off the end, makes it more radio-y, I guess.
Right. Okay. Good. Got it.
Sure. I always said this is a nice segue, because some people will call me, because obviously people will call you Rogers, but some people will call me in person Brando. And I'm just not that kind of personality where I'll correct them and say, hey, Brandon, Brando is okay if you want. But I'm like, I'm not Axel. I'm not these kind of people / these one
I
name
don't
kind of
know,
stars.
man. Don't sell yourself short. You come off pretty strong.
Okay,
I
I'm
mean,
5'6", but okay.
Brando's kind of badass. You can't deny that. Brando sounds pretty badass.
All right. Well, if Roger Stevens says so, I won't argue with you.
Yeah, no, you can use it.
With that being said, where are you calling from? I guess zooming from. I'm so used to being the old school radio guy calling from. Zooming in from. If you're watching on YouTube, I love the room that you're in. Is that your kind of home away from home?
Yeah,
Your studio?
this is in my house. This is my, I put this together and I've been
Home within a home, I guess I meant to say.
Yes. It's what I've been sequestered to. I've been quarantined to now. But yeah, it's great because this room is over a garage. So there's nobody under me to hear me. And there's a room between this room and the rest of the house. So it's separated. Now, you got two doors, it makes it a lot better to, for making noise in here. But yeah, I'm making almost done with another record in here with this group I've been working, and I've got it kind of dialed in now. But
Well, that's
yeah,
awesome. So like if you unless it's a secret location, where is that house located? And were you looking for a place to record when you were looking for a house?
yeah, it's a good question. And yes, no, I'm in the greater Philadelphia area.
Okay.
And, yeah, I got this house, we did kind of look for a while, looking for a somewhere where I could do this. And we got really lucky to find it. It was a connection through a relative, basically, knew these people who were putting their house on the market, and we met them, and this guy, he so generously left me a grand piano in this room. So if I turn right here, you'll see. And
Wow.
that's
Okay.
been a big deal for me. And he was buying a Steinway for his new place, like a new Steinway, like big grand piano.
So he didn't need it.
What, right? He didn't want to move it. It's an old. It's a late 19th century, early 20th century player piano that somebody took the guts out of, and it just sounds brilliant. So, like it's on, some recordings that I released last year. So
So let's get into that, because I would need a player piano because I can't play. That's why I'm on this.
I'm not as good as Nate, so like I get Nate to do it.
Right. So Nate Towne, I'm saying that right. It's Townie or Town?
Town. Just town.
Town. I'm glad I asked again. I'm so many names. I never edit these out.
Oh,
Because I read names for my entire life, and my first time saying it, I just leave it in and screw it
well,
up.
yeah,
So
it does beg the question, why the E, right?
exactly.
Because we have a way to spell town that doesn't involve the E, and it sounds same. I'll
You with
ask him,
your
I'll run that by him.
you and
What?
your extra S's and him with his extra E. I could see
Yeah,
why you
well,
guys have a bond.
yeah. Yeah, no, I like the name that we went with because it sounds like an accounting firm.
Town and Stevens.
Yeah, like you would trust that.
That's true. That's true. So tell us about, is that you had a debut album that came out several months ago,
Yeah,
last year.
yeah, it was out sort of, I think early June maybe we released it.
Yeah, summer last year.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
honestly, we just released it. We didn't really tell anybody, until it was there, and I don't know, it was kind of a proof of concept, if you will.
how does that work? Because if people can check it out, I like the video you shot where it's just you sitting in your car. It's kind of very simplistic, but I like the lighting
Yeah.
and everything.
Listen,
But
that happened.
obviously,
No, that is here's what that is. That's my iPhone attached to the steering wheel, and I drove through a car wash.
oh wow, that's
That car
creative.
wash is like going to a Meatloaf concert. I love it. It's like, and I did it in one shot because it's $20, right? I get the full treatment. They do the wax, the under thing, and the whatever the fuck it is. It's nonsense, but they're spraying it down with a bunch of different color soaps, basically. And really, it has like rock concert lights. And so
Wow.
I was like, I got to do a video, and it was perfect in the car because I got it situated where when I was driving down the road, I when I was safely looking at the road in front of me, the camera was positioned just such that it looked as if I was looking directly in the camera. I did this by myself in 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon. And
Wow.
the thing about that was I went through the car wash, and it kind of startled me when it started. It's $20. I'm like, okay, I got to get this right. Otherwise, I'm going to go broke. So I had the camera mounted, and I have the song on my iPad Bluetooth playing through the car, so I could lip sync the song. That's a trade secret, that there's lip syncing and
Yeah.
but and so it was perfect. I could do the sync and everything perfectly. Crank the stereo in the car, and just hit record on the iPhone.
That's
And
really creative.
and so when you go in those car washes, the thing grabs your wheels,
Yeah.
it starts pulling you up. And then so I do that, and then it's like I kind of freaked out, but I got the song started right, and the timing worked out perfectly because right as I went in there, the Meatloaf concert lights come on right as I start singing. I don't know. It just looked like I mean, it was a total accident. The thing that I didn't show was when I came out of the other end. How it sort of spits you out, and all of a sudden, the show's over and you're sad.
Yeah.
Um, I came out into honestly, like a side, just a freaking tornado, like hail, wind blowing sideways, like in a black cloud just coming right down the like you could see it. You could see the edge of it. And it was hard. And I grew up in the South. I grew up in Mississippi, and I know what tornadoes are like. So it looked
Sure.
like, and it felt, and it just started pouring, and but I kept the shot going. I didn't.
Good. That's a
Yeah.
good director. Did
I
you like I think that's wow. I never that's such a creative idea. You were just going, cleaning your car one day and a light bulb went off. You're like, this could be a video. And just to kind of DIY all of that is
Everybody
really
was
smart.
gone, so they left me alone. I was able to come up with an idea.
Well, that's wow, you're the idea man. That's why, you're one of the founding members of Blind Melon. So I kind of begs the question, if you're working with Town, who's also, within Blind Melon, and you kind of just said we put this together. I guess how did that happen? And why did not? Why was it just like a project between you two? Was it going to be a Blind Melon record? I guess what's the genesis of that? And
Well,
yeah,
yeah, I
we'll
think
start there.
when we first started working together, as a duo, um, we weren't really doing that. I went to his place in Michigan. He lives out near Lake, like right on Lake Huron. And so I went out there, and this was in the context right after he kind of joined Blind Melon. We had done some shows and hit it off. I was like, let's try to write some songs. So I went there, and wrote probably, I don't know, a few really cool things, but those were really to present as, here's some things for Blind Melon. And that was where we were going. And so along the way with that, Blind Melon did record and release like a few singles, and none of those were in this batch, but these were in that group of things that the band's maybe going to record, or maybe not, who knows, or maybe they were
Okay.
rejected, and that's the real reason. No, but no, I think actually some of the songs that were on the first Towne Stevens record were ones that either I or Christopher or somebody didn't think were right for those songs. But
Okay.
which is fine, that happened, that's the way we work. But we were set to go record a Blind Melon record, and I had a plane ticket for like March, 22nd, 2020, to go to Joshua Tree. We had already cut 5 or 6 songs. We were going to fly out there and do this, and then everything shut down. And so when that happened, that really threw us for a loop, and we sort of dispersed. During that time, I don't know, necessity being the mother of invention and all, I started singing. I'd never sang before, ever.
Mm. Oh wow, I didn't know that.
I mean, I sang in church as a kid every Sunday. Um, or I did sing some, like, group vocal things on some of the Blind Melon things, but nothing significant. And I certainly wasn't singing out front. Um, but I basically taught myself to sing by learning every song I could think of from my childhood to date that I love. I mean, all of the Beatles songs, and every like radio hit from the 70s, like I don't know, I'm just trying, I mean, I like, you know, some of that stuff, I just learned, like, for example, I just learned like 5 Supertramp songs, just with
Okay.
the guitar, and sing them, or, Whiter Shade of Pale or something, but you just kind of do your own thing with it. All I do is look at the cowboy chords and the lyrics, and I sing them from memory. I could do like Band on the Run from beginning to end, that kind
Wow.
of.
That must be really freeing as a
It
musician, whereas
is
you kind of
because I never did it before. I'd never
right.
learned other people's songs, and so um, when we were writing like the first Blind Melon record, it was literally just, I mean, that's probably not the correct word, but we were, I mean, we were kids. I'd been playing guitar 4 years maybe, and don't know anything about songwriting. This works, and that's why when I hear those songs now, I think, well, the arrangements are kind of crazy and weird things happen. We didn't know what we were doing.
That's and it shows where you come from, like how far you've come. And now I look at that video, it's such a different I look at it so differently now, and A, knowing it's a car wash,
It
but
doesn't feel any different to me.
the courage though it that takes for and by the way, okay, so I didn't think I mentioned the name of the song so people can check it out is Please Hold the Line.
Right.
Uh but just the courage that takes again, it's your face the entire time singing,
I
you
don't
know.
know. I mean, it doesn't feel that way to me.
No?
Or
Okay.
like to me, it's all the same, from the same place, and you know, it's certainly. not scary to look at the camera by yourself in the car, you know?
Right.
It
Right.
might it might be if there were, a cameraman and a director and act, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'll say this. If you get on stage, you're in some sense you have to be a kind of an actor, right? I mean, you're performing. That's what this is. Like I'm not afraid of performing in front of people or acting. I mean, my whole life is a series of frauds.
Maybe I guess I'm projecting because there are times, even though I don't know if my mic's picking this up or my cat is currently throwing up. So I just want to call that out because this is the world that we live in.
You want to scoop it up, and I'll sit here and do
No,
it.
we have wood floors. We can clean it up. It is what it is.
But I mean, honestly, like I don't know what the impact of that is in the room you're in, but
No, I think
uh,
sadly we're used to it. I think so. But
cat
I
vomit.
think I
The smell of cat vomit is that such fond memories.
but speaking of projecting, I think projectile vomit, projecting like what I think I was projecting my insecurities onto you because even though I do radio, there are times I will record something and afterwards I'll just be like, this sucks. I'll delete it, and or especially with the camera in my face because I grew up with radio being in theater of the mind, and there are
Right.
times where if I'm just talking, where it's just me and it's not that like I'm interviewing a guest like you, if it's just me talking to the camera, I kind of get bugged out. So I was
Yeah.
just curious. Yeah, that's
Well,
not the
don't look
case
at
with you.
yourself. Don't look at yourself,
Don't.
right?
Yeah, I know. I try not to do that, but
I
uh,
mean, look at yourself, give yourself one night of harsh criticism and then let it go. I don't know. I mean, it's
did you get your kind of philosophy and your positive outlook and just your what I call courage, but it's just something you're used to. Did you get that from growing up in Mississippi, from your parents? Like, was this something that you always had with you, even as a little Rogers?
well, I mean, I did grow up in a rural environment, where you kind of did, I don't know, that kind of stuff. Like you learn to be competent in things. I mean, I could drive a lot of vehicles by the time I was 11 or 12 years old, like things like that. And which is, I don't think is the norm when you grow up in like a rural or a metropolitan environment,
Oh
really.
yeah, no way. My son is. He's lucky growing up in Queens if he'll drive one car. So I get it.
Yeah, no, I listen, and I lived in New York City for I don't know, 15 years.
Whereabouts?
What's that? I lived mostly just downtown Manhattan, West Village,
Okay,
that area, like Soho, Tribeca area. This is like, you know, 95 to whatever, 2010 around.
sure.
But but like, my wife grew up near where we are here, and she didn't know how to drive and she learned in New York City, you know. Like, so as a grown up, just different environment growing up, but spent time growing up in the woods, hunting, fishing, doing that sort of stuff. It wasn't my favorite. People in my family loved it, and I went a lot. I was definitely interested in, I don't know, comic books and we had three channels on the television growing up, and they weren't very good.
Yeah,
And
I'm not as old as you, but I
we didn't
remember
have
13.
it
I
was a
remember 13.
very different thing. You spent time outside,
Yeah.
played sports, wasn't very good at any of them really, but um and then, when I went to basically all 12 years to you know, a religious school basically. I mean, it
Okay.
wasn't it wasn't it wasn't part of the curriculum necessarily, but it was established as a um, a Christian school. Um, and so around in my teenage years, having um, hit upon rough times, I found the guitar, and I really just took, took it to the limit, like immediately, like got obsessed with it. And Brad also, who was the bass player in Blind Melon, who started the band with me. It was but I spent a lot of time. I skipped the maximum amount of days of school that you could skip every year from probably like grades 10 through 12, and just played. And and I was obsessed, and we grew our hair long. It freaked everybody out, our parents, the school, my employer. um I don't know. I mean, there was nobody else around us that was interested in the things we were in this necessarily. That was our age. Um, but
It's led to a very well-rounded life because it's a few places I do want to go with this, and I know it's hard for me to even keep track. I will go to because this somehow led to you being a lawyer. Uh,
right. Well, that
but
was much later. I
right,
mean,
much later. But I just kind of want to plant that seed. But when you're talking about picking up the guitar and meeting Brad, uh, and I want to get into some fan questions. So I want to make sure I give some people credit with that. I can't find this one, the name of it, because I want to know. Oh yeah, here we go. Mark R. Lamb. So do you remember the first time you met Shannon and when this kind of the band kind of felt real, like this was really happening?
clearly, yeah. Like I remember the first day I met him, and I remember, well into that night. He We met him because it was just a series of connections, but he had landed in LA from Indiana, and it, it, he met Amit Erdogan, this guy from Atlantic Records. I think Axel introduced him to Amit Erdogan. He'd been there for maybe a week, Shannon, at this point. And Amit knew a friend that knew Brad and I, a mutual friend. I mean, I had never met Ahmet Ertegun, and I never did meet him, but
Huh.
he's a music business legend. But Shannon met him, and he went into his office. This woman brought him into his office. This is a couple of days before I met him, and he sat down and he played a couple of songs for Ahmet, and he was impressed and expressed interest in all that. And I think the ask was to try to help him find a band or something like that. I don't know. I mean, we never dealt with him ever again after that. But this mutual friend introduced. She knew that Brad and I had a drummer, and we had been making demos of our songs, and they kind of had a vibe. It was different from really what anything that was happening there that we were aware of, and so she introduced us, and he came over and sat on the floor of this garage in West Hollywood that we were rehearsing in. We converted the drummer's parents' garage. We built a room inside of a room. Brad was a good carpenter, and
Huh.
so we soundproofed this garage because then the house was another house was right next door, you know, and we're like, we're gonna beat the shit out of some drums in here. So we had that all set up, and he came over and he sat on the floor and with his acoustic guitar, and he played Change from the first record from like front to back. It was a complete thought, and and I think I said this, Brad. So I don't know, maybe afterwards or something, but I just said that dude is a rock star.
Huh.
It was like he was so good. It was clear the moment he opened his mouth, his voice. I'd never heard somebody, with that sort of, you know, a tone in their voice. It's beautiful, and his pitch was, his pitch was like fucked up in a good way. He knew how to bend stuff right, and it just had a lot of emotion. Really extraordinary.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
so always, always, and so I just knew immediately. It's like if he wants to work with me, I'll work with him for sure. I mean, I'll play that dude's songs. And he played some other things. He played he sang Have You Ever Seen the Rain by John Fogerty? You remember that one?
Of course.
Um it was like it was amazing, John Fogerty had this incredible voice, and Shannon didn't sound like him, but when he sang the song, he owned it, and had it was equally as amazing to me, in the room. And it just we it was so yeah, then we spent the afternoon hanging out, and then we started drinking. And that's when I found out like all the other stuff. uh
So,
in one day I knew the scope of it.
wow, that's I was gonna you answered a lot as I was thinking of like follow-up questions, but I appreciate this story. You're answering all my questions as we're going along
I'm
because
just trying
I want to know
to move
the
things along. Efficiency is important, Brando.
sure. I mean, because I was going to ask the first song that he sang, and I'm feeling like, just the fact that it's
Yeah.
changed is so special, and I wanted to know about in addition to his one of a kind voice, but it is the personality. So what did you? I guess what are the sides that you saw in the same day when you first meet the guy? Because the guy can be as talented as possible, but if you don't get along with him personally, I mean, there's so many bands you
I
can
know.
use
No,
as
it
an
was
example.
never. Here's the thing. Like we went out, drinking and got in each other's faces at the end of the night. Is the gist of it. And that was one of the only times I never saw him take a swing. And it wasn't because he looked at me and knew, mm,
It's okay, you can take a second.
um, I was a kid. I was scared, out there in, LA, but he was not. And you know, he was a friend from that moment on. He took care of me because that he knew that, he knew he would have won that fight. He could have
Mm.
hurt me.
I appreciate you sharing that with us, Rogers. I've been fortunate enough on this podcast to speak with his daughter Nico. I've had Christopher on, Danny Clinch on, and it's just to hear all these character traits of just what a good man he was. And again, in addition to the talent, and one of the secondary theme of this podcast is often I bring it up mental health and addiction and depression. So all these go, hand in hand with the talent, with just being a rock star. So it's it says a lot that, they say time heals all wounds, and in a way it does. You learn to live with it. But the fact that you could be so affected, um,
I'll
just
never
from
get, I'll never get over the, his death and all that. So, and I think all of us who were around at the time and knew him won't, and so even from that perspective, I think about his mother, I think about
yeah,
his family, think about his sister, like how they must have felt, because that's like another level, right?
yeah.
Um, so I don't know. It's just one of those things I'll carry to the grave, basically. And you don't ever resolve, or I don't, at least. I'm not, you know, capable of that, of resolving that kind of loss. It's just a hard loss. It always will be, for me.
Yeah. I can't. I say I can only speak as a fan. Because
Yeah.
I just like you say, you're trying to imagine what it's like for his mother, his daughter, just to be his bandmate. But to know that even though he's been gone for several years, he's still touching so many lives, no matter how close or not close, I guess, you are with him, that the music still impacts, his story still impact. I guess a few follow-ups with that. How bittersweet was it for you when the All I Can Say film came out, which was basically his movie, his point of view?
Yeah. I
What a
mean,
special film.
yeah. I mean, Danny, um, and Colleen and Taryn did just amazing work on this, and all of the people who worked with him. But I was knocked out by it, really. It's so because I was there for most of it, and I knew the camera was a presence, and it was very surreal to watch it in a room full of people because you just I've never had that experience, where you had this kind of meta objective view of yourself in a way
Yeah.
because you suddenly become aware of people's reactions to the things that maybe you or somebody else are do. I don't know. You certainly weren't doing things thinking that it was going to be on screen. And believe
Right.
the cutting room floor version of this movie. No, I mean it's there were hundreds of hours of video that Shannon took, and I mean every single frame in the movie is his basically.
It's
Um,
it's so funny to think about. I don't know. It refreshed my memory a little bit because I grew up with camcorders, and my dad had the big camcorder and everything at
also,
home
this
movies.
was a it was called a high eight, I think. It was
Okay.
like tape was a little bit bigger than a cassette tape. It wasn't a big VHS tape. It was the next size down. And then eventually it went to the next size down, sort of.
But to think about that he's doing that on his own, filming his bandmates, his friends, his family, and then you're flashing forward to this year where everybody and their mother has a TikTok account and everyone's doing the same thing. It's a completely different mindset. He was ahead of his time just by doing that.
Right. But if you think about it, the advent of cheap consumer, video technology like that, which means you can shoot hours of video for not nearly that much. I mean, it used to be before that you would have a Super 8 camera and then you have to get
Yeah.
that developed. And that's a lot more expensive, right? The sound, you have to get sound sync, whatever. Nope, video, like first when they came out, they were this big and people had them on the shoulder. But like by the time he got to Los Angeles in like 1989, it was like a handheld thing that was like that big, right? And it was he got like, the best one that you would get at Best Buy or whatever, whether but um it was cheap to shoot the tapes relatively. So that whoever might have the capacity to think of that, you know, that was the moment. And it makes sense if you think about it because I don't know, reality TV and all that stuff. That's what we're the forefathers of
Yeah.
reality.
I'd rather watch Blind Melon, Big Brother, or whatever than what's my
He,
wife watching now?
there's
The
Yeah,
Vanderpump
there's a
Rules.
lot of it. There's a lot of that footage, and I want to get it because it's really like a diary, for
Yeah,
us.
it is. It's a video. It's exactly what it is. It's a video diary, and it takes a great director to put that together in a cohesive story.
I just
Um,
those that the editors, Colleen and Tara, that they um, would even speak to me after I don't even know what they've seen is the thing.
ah,
It's like and Danny, I'm, how it is. I mean, we were 20, 21, 22 years old, and somebody handed us the keys. You know what I mean? And it was like we definitely ran it into the ditch. So all that's on there.
okay. Let's go back, and we're not going to go deep into that ditch, but ditches. Sorry, sometimes I keep trying to use great segues, and I don't need to. The scenes that was not left on the cutting room floor, and I got to speak with Nico about was Shannon going in to record "Don't Cry" with Axel and Slash. So I want to, I guess, ask you because I've spoken to Christopher Thorne about this and everyone about their GNR experiences and what it was like getting. Because as you mentioned before, you got Axel to suggest Ahmet to Shannon. So what was it like to? What was your your Guns N' Roses experience? What was that like?
Well,
All that considered.
I'll tell you, when I was a senior in high school, I got the Appetite for Destruction record in 1987, and I saw them play. They opened for Motley Crue in Jackson, Mississippi, and I
Mm.
felt like I was the only person who knew who they were. Because I mean, I flipped out over that record. I loved it. It was just like the whole like two guitar thing between Slash and Izzy and the way that they played off of each other was like, it was very much like the Stones. I mean, I love the Stones, but like they made it like hard rock, in a way that was sort of updated in a way. I mean, the Rolling Stones are the greatest rock and roll band ever in my mind, you know. But the 17-year-old version of me, absolutely, Guns N' Roses was it, and I loved. I don't know. I just thought it was real. It felt real. It like because you have to understand at the time, the things that were in this sort of realm and in this genre were not like that. The things that were successful, the 4 or 5 years before of hard rock bands and what they were like. I don't know. It just felt, I don't know. I mean, and it is. It holds up. It's a classic. It's one of the best rock records ever made. Um, and I still love it. Every time I hear it, I'm stoked. But
Then
and
to see them and that young and then to know
so that's
them.
it, right?
Oh,
So I was a huge fan, when we got to LA. Like when this is 1988, and I'd gotten out of high school, and so about a year passed before this where I met Shannon. We were like working like day labor stuff. We worked in a meat packing plant in Compton for a while.
wow,
Um,
jeez,
but yeah, but because we transferred from the meat packing plant we were working at in Mississippi.
got it.
But anyway, so I met Shannon, and then like shortly thereafter, like we went we went to Axel's house, and I met, or he was living up over Tower Records, the old Tower Records on Sunset. There was like a like a condominium
I
building in
want
there.
to say it was called Shoreham Towers.
Yeah, that was
Okay,
it.
I've done enough of these podcasts where that piece of information stuck in.
Mhm. That was it.
Okay,
It it struck me as a sort of place that the newly successful famous would buy as a starter, you know, pad
interesting.
on the way to their next one. This is exactly what happened. It's like, I don't know. It seemed, he had just, Axel had just gotten rich, I think. So, he had to get a place to stay. And because it wasn't that long after the record was just a big hit, this was right after they came off the road and they were in the studio making the next record. It was during that time. And so yeah, I met him, and I don't know, he was super cool. Like he treated us very well. I mean, the he and I and Shannon went to see a movie once, like the first or second time, maybe the second or third time I hung out with him, like in the middle of the day on Hollywood Boulevard. It was the weird, at Mann's Theater.
Do you remember the movie?
Mortal Thoughts with Bruce Willis and Demi Moore.
Okay,
and it was just like a random thing. He was like, I want to go. Axel said, you want to go see a movie, and so we went to a movie with the three of us and his man Earl.
Oh,
You know,
bodyguard, yeah, Earl Gavanon, yeah, his
yeah,
bodyguard.
he was cool, and so yeah, it was people we got in a limousine and went down Sunset over to Hollywood Boulevard and got out in broad daylight and all the that's where all the it's crowded with tourists and it was just the summer and yeah, people were just like gawking and we sat in the movie and the other side of the theater was just like looking at us. I'd never
Uh,
had that experience, and I didn't really talk very much because I didn't know what to say, it's just kind of like observing. And I mean,
well, you're
you
at
know,
a movie. First of all, you shouldn't be saying
well,
much
I'm
anyway.
saying that when I was hanging out with around
Oh,
that,
okay.
it was basically him and Shannon back and forth, and me just kind of sitting there like, wow, I can't believe this is so wild.
I wanted to ask, what was the rapport like? Because obviously they're hometown buddies of Indiana. Like, what do they? I don't know. Did they talk music? Were they silly like brothers? Do you remember anything
I don't
specific
even
about their
I don't
rapport?
remember like they knew people in common or you know I don't remember. I honestly can't remember the I mean,
Okay.
of the conversation, but I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
Well, you're
But,
doing good so far with all your memories, so
yeah,
that's fine.
no, no, I have the long haul memory, I guess, but not like I don't know. And conversation is hard to. I mean, I think in what I do remember is just being kind of like freaked out by the whole situation. I mean, you have to understand. I had nothing. I've been sleeping like the year before. I slept in the car for months. It was like I mean, and we didn't, know we didn't know like, what was going to happen with us or whether we get a band going really. I was just this was very early.
I
So
gotcha.
uh uh and I didn't see Axel that much after that until we had gotten the band going and then we went on tour with him, you know. So I know Shannon talked to him here and there and I didn't go in the studio. Um but I ended up living at with Shannon in a place in Hollywood on DeLongpre Avenue. And I don't know, for as the band really came together and wrote some songs and got a record deal and all that. And that was our last place that we lived in LA, he and we lived there for about a year. So I would see Axel at that time, occasionally.
Okay. Okay. I
Like,
forgot. There's so much.
yeah, there's I don't know. I mean, crazy shit happened, but I don't, you know.
We don't need to go there if you don't. We don't need to go there. I've loved everything you've said so far.
But
And
my impression, he genuinely cared about Shannon, and he was a cool guy. He was good to us, you know. But he helped us out a lot. So I would never, I'm not gonna, you know, um, bite the hand that feeds me. He was a good dude. I know he
it's,
had controversy and all that kind of stuff. I didn't give a shit. I was like, does he treat us good? He's our guy.
essentially, that's what Christopher Thorne said the same thing. I mean, he was so good to us, and whatever quirks he may have, like he was good to us, so it was a great time. So I mean, that's good, consistent story. So that's usually what I get here, honestly, about Axel, is that. And God, I can keep you here forever. It's been so easy talking with you, but I just want to get in a few more before I let you go because I don't want to keep you
Oh
here
yeah,
for.
yeah. I'm gonna have to go here but a few minutes, but I'm
Sure,
here. So,
sure. So one thing, because obviously, Blind Melon has been active for quite some time with Warren, Travis Warren, and so I want to know. He's obviously. I was lucky enough to see you guys play in Brooklyn. Actually, 'cause you said you were there recently. You're in Brooklyn. I saw you at La Poussin Rouge. This I think was right before the pandemic. You played
oh,
great.
right, right. Around the time of the film, when we did the film thing.
Yeah, slightly before. I don't think it was officially out, but it was an amazing time. So I would love to see you guys again. So one thing I
Yeah.
do want to ask, what is next for Blind Melon as far as shows, as far as music? Because I became a bigger fan after that show. I was a fan already. Every time I interview somebody in the camp of Blind Melon, I'm a bigger fan after today. So what's next?
Well, I really don't have a good answer, to be honest. I think that I think not everybody is clear on whether or not they want to do stuff. And so, in terms of like playing shows of Blind Melon, I mean, it doesn't, it's separate from what I'm doing, you know.
Yes.
Um, I mean, we all get along and whatnot, but I know that like we have to answer this question. So, but I don't, I can't do it without, you know, the buy-in from all, people involved. Um, but we'll play shows this year, later this year.
Okay.
Um, but I don't know about recording. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay. I'll leave with this, and then I
I
want
leave
to.
my thing is it's like it's hard to answer that question without getting in the midst into like the stuff that's like, the internal politics of the
I
band.
get it. And tell me if this is could
From
be
my from my own perspective, I'm open to anything that's a good idea, basically.
sure. So just quick piggyback on that. You can, if it's too much in the weeds and you can't get into it, because obviously Travis has done a great job over the years. You see
Travis is amazing.
bands like you see, but you see bands. Well, it's interesting. I don't want to say, but it's interesting when you see bands like currently with Sublime. There, Jacob, Noel is the son of Bradley. It's almost as kind of a situ like almost like a Nico Hoon situation. Who he was very, very, very young when Bradley passed away. Did perform some shows, but now it's going to be a band. Nico has performed with you guys before. Has it ever been discussed as far as her, I guess, taking over, or
I
was
don't
that
think
just?
she wants to play with a bunch of old dudes. I mean, Nico's cool. You know what I mean? It's like that would be so embarrassing for her. I mean, imagine
Sure,
that story, like your dad's band,
but that
right?
happens. Look at the Eagles.
Van Halen, right? Wolfgang did it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean,
well,
but
I mean,
again,
I don't think she wants to do that, but and I don't know. I mean, at the time, listen, you have to understand when we started working with Travis, I think how old was she? She was probably like 8, 9 years old or something. Or no, she would have been 12 years old. I don't think that'd be appropriate, Brando.
right. But I'm saying like now. I'm talking about now. Like that would
Oh,
be
we did. I was on stage with Nico as recently as September.
okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, my mind's always open to anything. Here's the truth. What I care about, for me, here's my truth. What I care about is making records, right? It's for the most part. I love playing live shows, and I'm going to do it with Blind Melon. I'm going to do it with this thing I'm doing, but and whoever else calls me with a reasonable offer. But uh, you know, I have deep, deep feelings about not having made records. That's my reason for being here. It's to make songs, to make new songs, to make things out of nothing. It's the only reason I got into this. And so, to make something new. And so while like I when I have a new record, to me, like I want to go on tour. I want to perform those songs, and then I want to stop and do it again. And you have to think for a moment, about what happened with us, and how that affects people. It's like some people react better than others, right? But it's like you get handed your dreams, right? And so I don't know. I I gotta, get some stuff out of me, before it's
So
time.
we'll end with that. What's next for you? What is coming next for Roger Stevens? What are you working on now that we can look forward to?
Well, I mean, we're gonna release with the Towne Stevens. We'll release a record probably in 2 months or something. I
Cool.
mean, I was just there in Brooklyn. We did all the tracking, so now I'm in here and I'll finish it. I went to Michigan and recorded with Nate, and we mapped out everything on a piano, and then we tracked everything, and yeah, it sounds good.
Awesome. Well, I hope you come back on again when it comes out. I know we went overtime today, but I mean, this was such a pleasure, and you're a
Well,
great storyteller. So thanks for coming on.
all right. Well, I appreciate you, Brando.
Absolutely. So that
Um,
does it. Yeah. Sorry. Do you have any final words before I wrap up here?
I hope these aren't the final words. How about
Uh,
that?
oh, that works. Well, these are my final words. So that does it for this
Final
episode of.
words for the moment, but
I
you
know
got to
what
be
you mean.
careful. You could really say,
I know what you mean. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? Well, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.